You know, before we even open the first chapter of this book, I want you to take a second and just look at your hands. It sounds strange, I know, but those hands have the power to build, to comfort, and to lead. Yet, for most of us, we feel like our hands are tied. We feel like we're stuck in a cycle of just getting through the day. We're sitting in meetings where nobody listens to us, or we're trying to manage a team that seems to be pulling in 10 different directions. And in the quiet moments, we ask ourselves that painful question: is this it? Am I just not born to lead? If you ever felt that pit in your stomach, I want you to listen closely, because you aren't alone. Let's go back in time for a moment. I want you to imagine a dusty farm in Maryville, Missouri, back in the late 1800s. There's a young boy there named Dale. He's scrawny, his clothes are hand-me-downs, and he's incredibly self-conscious about his ears. He feels small. He feels invisible. Dale Carnegie didn't start out as a titan of industry. He started out as a struggling salesman, traveling through the back roads of the Midwest, trying to sell correspondence courses to ranchers who didn't care about education. He faced rejection every single day. He spent nights in lonely boarding houses, wondering why some people could close a sale with a smile, while he was struggling just to get a hello. But Dale was a student of the human heart. He started watching. He started noticing that leadership wasn't about the soap he was selling or the logic he was using. It was about an invisible force, a way of making people feel valued. In 1936, he poured everything he knew into a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was a sensation. But as the decades rolled on, the world changed. The Great Depression ended. The industrial age exploded into the information age, and people realized that being friendly wasn't enough to navigate a complex organization. That's where the leader in you comes in. This isn't just a book. It's a survival manual for the human soul in a corporate world. It was written to show you that the leader isn't someone you have to become. It's someone you have to uncover. It's about stripping away the fear and the ego that keep you quiet when you should be speaking and loud when you should be listening. Now, before we go any further, I want to ask you to do something for me. If you're here because you want to be the kind of leader people actually want to follow, not because they have to, but because they believe in you, hit that subscribe button. We're going to spend the next few minutes together. And I don't want this to be the last time we talk. Let's build a community of people who lead with heart. Are you in? Let me know in the comments with a simple "I'm in." In this video, we're going to break this journey down into 4 massive pillars. Pillar 1 is about your internal foundation, finding your voice. Pillar 2 is the art of human relations, the people side of the game. Pillar 3 is the skill of influence, how to move the needle. Pillar 4 is a mindset, how to stay strong when the world gets loud. So, take a deep breath. Turn off your notifications. Give yourself this time. Let's find the leader in you. Pillar 1, the personal foundation. The very first thing Dale wants us to tackle is the biggest myth in leadership, the alpha myth. We've all seen the movies. The leader is always the guy shouting on the battlefield or the woman slamming her fist on the boardroom table. We've been conditioned to think that leadership is a performance. But Carnegie says that's exactly why so many people fail. He tells us that leadership is a choice of behavior, not a trait of personality. I want you to think about 2 different types of leaders. Think about the quiet architect. This is the person who sits in the back of the room, listens to every word, and then speaks 3 sentences that solve the entire problem. Then think about the energizer. This is a person whose enthusiasm is so thick you can almost feel it when they walk in the door. Both are leaders. The tragedy is when the architect tries to act like the energizer. It feels fake. It smells like a performance. And the one thing people will never follow is a fake. Dale's first rule is simple: be yourself. But what does that actually mean? It means identifying your natural strengths. Are you a great listener? Use that. Are you a master of detail? Use that. Stop trying to fix your weaknesses and start doubling down on your natural gifts. I want to pause right here. If you had to pick one word to describe your natural strength, not what you think you should be, but what you actually are, what would it be? Is it calm? Is it creative? Is it analytical? Write that word down or put it in the comments. Look at that word. That is your leadership footprint. That is where your power comes from. Once you've embraced who you are, the next step is getting that message across the Great Divide. Carnegie explains that in almost every organization, there's a wall of silence. It's that invisible barrier between the boss and the team. The boss thinks they're communicating because they're sending out emails and memos. But communication isn't sending. Communication is receiving. Dale tells a story about a manager who couldn't understand why his team was so unmotivated. He was sending out detailed instructions every morning. But when Dale sat down with the team, they said, "We don't even know who he is. We just get these cold emails." The manager was documenting, but he wasn't connecting. Communication is the oxygen of leadership. If you aren't visible, if you aren't approachable, you're essentially trying to lead in a vacuum. You have to break the silence. And you don't do it with a big speech. You do it with the small moments. It's a good morning. How was your daughter's soccer game? I noticed you put a lot of work into that report. Thank you. Carnegie reminds us that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you want people to hear your big ideas, you first have to listen to their small concerns. You have to build the bridge before you can walk across it. This brings us to the holy grail of leadership. How do you get people to actually want to work? Most managers use the carrot and the stick. You do the work, you get a bonus, the carrot. You don't do the work, you get fired, the stick. And while that works for a little while, it never gets you the best version of a person. It only gets you the bare minimum. Dale had a radical idea. He said there is only one way under high heaven to get someone to do something, and that is to make them want to do it. Think about your own life for a second. When was the last time you stayed late to finish a project? Was it because someone threatened you? Or was it because you felt like that project was yours? Because you felt like it mattered? Every human being has a deep, burning desire to be important, to feel like their work has meaning. As a leader, your job isn't to manage people, it's to meaning make. You have to take the goal of the company and translate it into a language that matters to the individual. If you want a clerk to be more accurate with their filing, don't talk about efficiency. Talk about how their accuracy makes the whole team's life easier. Talk about how they are the anchor of the department. When you align someone's personal pride with the job at hand, you don't have to push them anymore. They will pull the load themselves, and they'll do it with a smile. We've only just finished the foundation. If you're still with me, I want you to give yourself a mental high five. Most people would have scrolled away by now, but you're still here because you know that these principles are the keys to a different kind of life. As we move into Pillar 2, the art of human relations, I want you to think about the most difficult person in your life right now. Maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a family member. Keep them in your mind, because what we're about to talk about next is going to change that relationship forever. Moving right along, we built the foundation of who you are. Now, we're stepping out of your internal world and into the world of everyone else. This is Pillar 2, the art of human relations. This is where Dale Carnegie's work truly separates the bosses from the leaders. Pillar 2, the art of human relations. If there's one magic secret in this entire book, the kind of secret that can turn a cold room into a warm one in seconds, it is this: become genuinely interested in other people. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm already interested in people. But are you? Really? Dale tells a story about a famous magician named Howard Thurston. Thurston was a master of his craft, but he said his success wasn't because of his tricks. It was because before every show, he would stand behind the curtain and repeat to himself over and over, "I love my audience. I am grateful for these people." Compare that to most of us. We walk into a meeting thinking, "I hope they like me," or "I hope I don't mess up." We're focused on us. Carnegie's insight was that you can make more friends in 2 short months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in you. Think about that for a second. If you want to be a leader, stop trying to be the most interesting person in the room. Instead, try to be the most interested person. When you sit down with an employee, don't just ask about the project. Ask about their weekend. Ask about that hobby you saw on their desk. And don't just do it to check a box. Do it because you want to understand the human being in front of you. When people feel that you actually care about who they are, they don't just work for you. They follow you. I want to challenge you right here. In your next conversation, whether it's with your partner, your kid, or a coworker, try to ask 3 questions about them before you mention anything about yourself. Just 3. You'll be shocked at how the energy changes. If you're willing to try this 3-question challenge, type "challenge accepted" in the comments. Now let's continue. This next principle is perhaps the hardest one to master, especially when things are going wrong. Carnegie says we must honestly try to see things from the other person's point of view. We've all had those moments of pure frustration. Maybe a team member missed a deadline for the 3rd time. Your blood is boiling. You want to walk in there and give them a piece of your mind. But a leader pauses. A leader asks, why did they miss it? What is going on in their world that made this happen? Carnegie tells us that there is a reason the other person thinks and acts as they do. Ferret out that reason, and you have the key to their actions and perhaps to their heart. Most people are just doing the best they can with the tools they have. Maybe that lazy employee is actually dealing with a sick parent. Maybe that aggressive coworker is actually terrified of losing their job. When you lead with curiosity instead of judgment, the walls come down. You stop fighting over who is right and start working on what is best. It takes a big person to do this. It's easy to get angry. It's hard to be empathetic. But which one do you think people are going to respect more? If you want to influence people, you have to meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. There's a reason we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. But in the world of business, we often act like it's the other way around. Carnegie reminds us that the best conversationalists in the world are often the ones who say the least. He tells a story of a dinner party where he sat next to a famous botanist. Dale didn't know anything about plants, so he just asked questions. He asked about the man's travels, his research, his discoveries. At the end of the night, the botanist told the host that Dale Carnegie was the most brilliant conversationalist. Dale had hardly said a word. Listening is the ultimate form of flattery. It says to the other person, what you are saying is important. You are important. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the person who actually listens is a magnet. As a leader, your team is full of ideas, frustrations, and solutions. But if you're always the one talking, you'll never hear them. Try this. In your next meeting, wait. Let the silence hang for a few seconds. Let someone else fill it. You'll be amazed at what you learn when you finally stop talking. The final piece of the human relations puzzle is about moving from I to we. No leader is an island. You can't reach the top by yourself. And even if you did, it will be a lonely place to be. Carnegie emphasizes that a leader's job is to create a sense of belonging. They don't take the credit. They give it away. Think about the most successful sports teams. When the star player says, "I couldn't have done it without the defense," the whole team plays harder the next game. It's the same in an office. When you use words like our vision, our challenge, and our victory, you're building a tribe. People want to belong to something bigger than themselves. They want to be part of a winning team. When you make them feel like a partner instead of just a cog in a machine, their productivity doesn't just go up, their loyalty becomes unbreakable. We've covered the people side of the book, and this is usually where the biggest aha moments happen before we move into Pillar 3, which is all about how to actually influence people's actions and handle mistakes. I want you to think, which of these 3 is your biggest challenge? Is it being interested, seeing their point of view, or listening? Write that one thing down, because in the next section, we're going to take those relations and turn them into results. Here is Pillar 3, the skill of influence. This is where we talk about the hard stuff, how to fix mistakes, how to give feedback, and how to lead when things aren't going perfectly. Pillar 3, the skill of influence. You know, everything we've talked about so far, finding your style, listening, being interested, it's all about building the foundation. It's about building trust. But now, we have to talk about the heavy lifting. We have to talk about what happens when someone on your team messes up, or when you have to deliver news that nobody wants to hear. This is where most people fail as leaders. They either become the dictator, shouting and pointing fingers, or they become the pushover, avoiding the conflict entirely until the whole project falls apart. Dale Carnegie had a better way. He called it the skill of influence. It starts with something that feels counterintuitive, respecting the dignity of others. Dale tells a story about a construction foreman who found his workers smoking right under a no smoking sign. Now, a typical boss would have walked up and screamed, "Can't you read? Get those out or you're fired." But that just creates resentment. Instead, this foreman walked up, handed each man a cigar, and said, "I'd appreciate it, boys, if you'd smoke these outside." He didn't mention the sign. He didn't belittle them. He gave them a gift and pointed them in the right direction. He let them save face. Carnegie reminds us that when you destroy a person's ego, you destroy their desire to do good work for you. If you have to correct someone, do it in a way that leaves their dignity intact. Think about a time someone corrected you in front of others. How did it feel? Probably like a punch in the gut, right? Now think about a time someone pulled you aside, told you they believed in you, and then showed you a better way. The difference between those two moments is the difference between a boss and a leader. If you've ever had a leader who protected your dignity, give this video a like just for them. This leads us to the power of praise. Carnegie says we should be hearty in our approbation and lavish in our praise. But here's the secret. It has to be specific. If you just walk around saying "good job" to everyone, it starts to sound like noise. It feels empty. But if you say, "Hey, I noticed how you handled that angry customer this morning. You stayed so calm, and you really turned their day around," that is like lightning. Specific praise is a roadmap. It tells the person exactly what they did right, so they can do it again. It's the highest form of motivation because it proves you're actually paying attention. But what about when you are the one who messed up? This is the most powerful tool in a leader's pocket. Admit your own mistakes first. Most leaders think they have to be perfect. They think if they admit a mistake, they'll look weak. But Carnegie says the opposite is true. When you walk into a room and say, "Look, I handled that meeting poorly, and I want to apologize. Something incredible happens. The tension leaves the room. By admitting your flaws, you give everyone else permission to be human. You stop being a statue on a pedestal and start being a person they can actually follow. I want you to try something this week. If you make a small mistake, and we all do, don't hide it. Own it out loud. Watch how it changes the way your team looks at you. It's scary the first time, but I promise it's the fastest way to build trust. Finally, Carnegie talks about setting goals, but he doesn't talk about them in terms of numbers or spreadsheets. He talks about giving people a fine reputation to live up to. Instead of telling someone they're doing a bad job, tell them about the potential you see in them. Say, I've always admired your attention to detail, which is why I was surprised by the errors in this report. When you give someone a reputation to protect, they will work harder to prove you right than they ever would to prove you wrong. You aren't just giving them a task. You're giving them a vision of the person they could be. And that, my friend, is the ultimate skill of influence. It's not about manipulation. It's about inspiration. We're coming up on the final stretch of our video together. We've talked about you, we've talked about them, and we've talked about the work. Now, in our final pillar, we're going to talk about the engine, your mindset, your energy, and how to keep going when the world feels heavy. You know, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the people around you and the tactics of leadership. But for this final stretch, I want to talk about the person in the mirror. Because let's be honest, you can have all the techniques in the world, but if your internal engine is burning out, none of it matters. This is Pillar 4, the leader's mindset. This is about the energy you bring into the room before you even open your mouth. Pillar 4, the leader's mindset. Dale Carnegie once said that the person who goes farthest is generally the one who is willing to do and dare. But it's hard to do and dare when you're paralyzed by worry. We've all had those nights. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, playing out every worst-case scenario for your project or your business. Carnegie saw this destroying leaders decades ago, and his advice is more relevant now than ever. He tells us to live in day-tight compartments. Think of a great ship. If it hits an iceberg, the captain can seal off different compartments to keep the ship from sinking. Your life needs to be the same way. You can't lead effectively if you're carrying the weight of yesterday's mistakes and the fear of tomorrow's problems all at once. You only have enough energy for the next 24 hours. Focus there. And here's the thing about energy. It's contagious. Dale's big secret to staying power was enthusiasm. Now, I'm not talking about being a cheerleader or faking a smile when things are falling apart. Real enthusiasm is a spiritual strength. It's the belief that what you are doing matters. Carnegie had a famous rule: to become enthusiastic, act enthusiastic. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But there's a deep psychological truth there. Your physical body can actually change your emotional state. If you stand up straight, take a deep breath, and speak with a bit more life in your voice, your brain starts to believe that you're excited. And when you are excited, your team catches that spark. You can't light a fire in someone else if your own match is wet. I want you to take a second right now, wherever you are, and just adjust your posture. Sit up a little taller. Take a deep breath. Do you feel that tiny shift in your energy? That's the beginning of leadership. If you're feeling a bit more fired up than you were 40 minutes ago, let me know in the comments. Just type "ready to lead." As we bring this journey to a close, Dale leaves us with a reminder that leadership isn't a destination. You don't just wake up one day and say, "Okay, I'm a leader now, I'm done." It's a practice. It's a way of living. He tells us to keep our eyes on the horizon. A leader is someone who sees the big picture when everyone else is lost in the details. They are the ones who remind the team why we are doing this. You've sat through this entire masterclass. You've looked at the 16 principles. You've thought about your style, your listening, and your mindset. But Carnegie would be the first to tell you that knowledge isn't power. Action is. If you just close this video and go back to your old habits, we've both wasted our time. But if you take just one thing, maybe it's admitting a mistake, maybe it's listening more, maybe it's just living in a day-tight compartment, then the leader in you has already started to wake up. I want to thank you for spending this time with me. It's been an honor to walk through Dale's world with you. Remember, you don't need a title to be a leader. You don't need permission from a boss to start being the most interested, empathetic, and enthusiastic person in the room. You just need to decide that you're going to show up differently tomorrow. If this video helped you, please share it with one person who you think has the leader in them, but maybe doesn't know it yet. Sometimes, all someone needs is a little bit of belief from a friend to start their own journey. Before you go, I have one last question for you. Out of everything we talked about today, which one hit you the hardest? Which one felt like it was written just for you? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Go out there and lead.